This is Kiran Kamble again, and today I'm going to talk about Chapter 2, Part 1 of Chapter 2, which is Statistical Conclusion, Validity, and Internal Validity. Let's start. So, what is validity? Academically, it means the accuracy with which a method can measure what it intends to measure. That is, the results correspond to the real world properties, characteristics, and variations. In layperson terms, validity can be stated as something that is logically or factually sound or officially binding. That seems correct, logically correct. Now, uh, the textbook says that validity is a property of inference. A randomized experiment is considered as a gold standard, but it does not guarantee that one will make valid inferences about the existence of descriptive causal relationship. Why is that so? Is there anything hampering the randomization power? Let's see. First, let us see what inference is. Inference is a conclusion reached on the basis of evidence and reasoning. So you see how it corresponds with validity. Now we have often heard that randomized experiment is a gold standard for determining descriptive causal relationship. But is that foolproof? No. Why? Well, for starters, there can be differential attrition, which will hamper the randomization power. How? So differential attrition means difference in proportion of treatment and control group sizes. That is, participants in either of the groups may leave at different rates. So that will lead to attrition bias and also affect the power of the study, which will further affect the detection of any effect from the study. Additionally, sampling error, use of improper statistical methods may occur and further hamper the finding of any effect. So, it is evident that randomization alone cannot guarantee validity and unequivocal causal relationship identification. Now, it is also said that randomization helps internal validity but hampers external validity. How and why? So let us see what internal and external validity are, which we have seen earlier, but just a refresh. So internal validity is the extent to which a study proves a trustworthy cause and effect relationship between a treatment and an outcome while eliminating alternative explanations. Whereas external validity is the extent to which the study findings can be applied to other settings and the real world. Now, as we saw, randomization, it is stated that randomization helps internal validity but hampers external validity. So it seems like a trade-off. Let's see how. To quote it, to explain it, I would quote the experiment conducted by Zhang et al. In 2015. It was a randomized controlled trial. And they talk about, in that study, they mention that in a randomized controlled trial, to ensure internal validity, what we do is we control for confounders. So that outcome can be attributed to the treatment. And that is done by randomization. But such isolation of confounders is hardly possible in the real world. So you see, we have ensured internal validity, but external validity is then hampered. Now let's move on to the next topic. Yeah. The book also talks about 3 theories of truth. Let us see what these are. The first is the correspondence theory. It states that a claim is true if it corresponds to the real world. Simple correspondence theory. The origins of this theory can be traced back to Aristotle and Plato, the ancient Greek philosophers. Now, for example, to explain this, if I state that dry leaves fall off the tree, then this statement will be true if I can prove, I can observe in the real world that dry leaves do actually fall off from the tree and plants. So that is correspondence theory. Next is coherence theory. So what is a coherence theory? It was originally developed by Hegel and Spinoza, and it states that a belief is true if it can be incorporated in an orderly manner in a larger coherent system of beliefs. So what does that mean? How that can be explained? So if I say that if I toss my cap up in the air, it will fall down to the earth. So that statement is true. Why? Because it belongs to a coherent system of beliefs called the theory of gravity. And that is why this statement that I made about the cap is true. The third theory is the pragmatism theory. Charles Peirce is claimed to be the first proponent of this theory. Simply put, the theory states that any statement to be true and meaningful, it must have practical applications. For example, let us consider the rising costs of healthcare in the US. It is a problem. Now, if you want to find a solution to this problem, it has to be a practical solution based on evidence and data, not merely on ideology. That is, you cannot solve this problem saying that socialism will help, or capitalism will help, or liberalism will help. These are constructs, these are abstract thoughts. So, to develop a solution, we might draw from these abstract thoughts, concepts, but we will have to find some practical solutions. So, that is the theory of pragmatism. Let's move on. Now, the book in table 2.1 talks about four types of validity. Let's see what these are. The first is statistical conclusion validity. It is when conclusions of a study are based on adequate data analysis using appropriate statistical methods. So that is statistical conclusion validity. Next is internal validity, which we have talked about. It is when a trustworthy cause and effect relationship is established between a treatment and an outcome while eliminating alternative explanations. Third is construct validity. It is when legitimate inferences drawn from operationalizations of a study can be linked to the constructs on which the operationalizations are based. That is, the variables of the study are based on some underlying theory and construct, and the inferences drawn from the study can be linked to that basic theory or construct. Fourth is the external validity. Again, we have talked about it. When the study findings can be transferred across to the Cronbach's unit treatment observations and settings. Now, construct and external causal generalizations are secured through construct and external validity can be linked to representation and extrapolation. So let us see first what representation and extrapolation is. Now, representation is a situation where one entity stands or represents another entity. In research, as we know, that coincides with construct validity because the findings of a study, the inference, are linked through the units, treatments, observation settings of the study to a basic construct. So that is representation. Extrapolation is simply inferring about, in layman term, extrapolation is inferring about something that is unknown from something that is known. And that is what external validity is, because we find something in a study and then extrapolate it or transfer it to another population with similar characteristics. So, representation and extrapolation correspond to construct and external validity as was postulated by Cronbach using the Utah's concept of unit statements, observations, and settings. Now, construct validity, the construct part of construct validity is many times considered difficult to understand. So let us try to explain that in a layperson terms. So construct is an abstract concept entity with no physical being. Construct cannot be touched, seen. For example, personality, job satisfaction, organizational commitment. These are all constructs. So we cannot measure them. So to measure these, we need to define some proxy variables, indicators, which relate to these constructs, and we can measure these variables to understand this construct and measure this construct. Say, for example, in job satisfaction, we cannot measure job satisfaction directly. So what we do is we develop proxy variables like salary, workplace, distance from home, the office space, availability of cafeteria in the office, and so on and so forth. These each can be measured, and then we can overall measure the job satisfaction. Now, the book also very smartly equates these four validity types that we saw earlier with four questions. And let us see how the book describes it. So the first question, which corresponds to statistical conclusion validity, talks about the amount of variation, and how significant and trustworthy the finding of the covariation between the cause and effect is based on the statistical methods, uh, data analysis using appropriate statistical methods. So that's what the question asked by first question asked is that happening? The second question, which refers to internal validity, asks if the corresponding changes between cause and effect are indeed causal. That is, the change in the cause is it actually leading to the change in effect? Question 3 is again relating to construct validity. It asks if the units, treatments, observations, and settings of the study are based on some underlying theory or construct. So that is what the third question talks about. And the fourth question, which again equates or relates to external validity, asks if the causal relationship found in the study can be applied with same effect to a different setting with similar characteristics. So that's the way the book has come up with these four questions, and let's move on to the next slide. Now, uh, the book also describes some validity threats and says that these threats actually serve a valuable function. How? Now, these threats to validity encountered over time, we know that they are incorporated in an institutional memory in the research field. So an experimenter can draw from this institutional memory and anticipate criticisms and limitations in their own experiments, and then take necessary steps to rule out these threats to better their experiments. Hence, threats serve as a valuable function because then they help an experimenter anticipate the criticism and limitations and shortcomings in their study and improve on them and rule out, as the book states. Now, uh, there are three questions pertaining to threat the book talks about. And the book also mentions a case about federal the Federal Women, Infant and Children program, WIC program, and the food stamps program. So let us see how these three critical questions of threat can be explained from the point of view of these two programs. So for these two programs, let us consider the food stamp program as a threat to the WIC program. Now, what are these programs in brief? So the WIC program aims at improving pregnancy outcomes for eligible low-income women, and food stamps program aims at improving nutritional status of eligible low-income women. Now the food stamp program, the nutritional provisions in the program may also contribute to better pregnancy outcomes because it improves the nutrition. So it is logical to equate that. So now let us look at the questions. Now, the first question is pertaining to threat is the book talks about is does the threat apply? So in this case of food stamp program and the WIC, yes, because the food stamp program may play a role in improving the pregnancy outcome through nutrition, as we just talked about. So the threat does apply. Question two is the threat plausible or just possible? So in this case, plausible because both the programs, WIC and food stamp program, use this similar, if not same, eligibility criteria to select low income women. So a woman can be uh, availing benefits from both the programs. So we don't really know which program is really making the difference. So question two is also valid here. Now question three says asks whether the threat operates in the same direction and could partially or totally explain the effect. In this case, again, yes, because the food stamp program also can contribute to better pregnancy outcome, the same direction of effect that the WIC program intends to do. Now, it can do it partially or totally, but it does have that effect. Let's move on. Now, let us see what statistical conclusion validity is through the lens of covariance. So, statistical conclusion validity is the extent to which the covariance between the cause and effect variables are accurately detected by adequate data analysis using appropriate statistical methods. Now, the book talks about two statistical inferences pertaining to covariance. The first is whether the cause and effect covary, and the second is the strength of the covariance. Now let us try to explain these in terms of type 1 and type 2 errors. So what is the type 1 error? If we incorrectly conclude a covariance, that is we say yes when there is actually no covariance, then it is type 1 error. And type 2 error is when we say no when there is actually a covariance, it is a type 2 error. So these relate to inference number 1, that is whether cause and effect covary. For inference 2, it may happen that we may over or underestimate the strength of the covariance and its degree of confidence. So that is how covariance can be explained. The statistical inferences can be explained from type 1 and type 2 error, inference 1. Now let us see what NHST is. NHST is null hypothesis significance testing. That's the full form. It is the most commonly used method to assess covariance between cause and effect. It is a statistical comparison between two means, the cause and effect. And a null hypothesis assumes there is zero difference between the means, and we have to prove whether it is true or false. So that is what null hypothesis significance testing is. Now, there is a lot of debate around this NHST in the field of research. There are some pros and cons of the debate. Now, what is the pros of NHST? The pros is that we can draw a conclusion. It enables us to draw a conclusion about a population based on a sample. So that is the pros. The cons is wrong inferences can be drawn, like suppose the conclusion may be that the experiment can be replicated when actually it cannot or it would not be, or the inference can be that of a study can be that the NHST indicates what the effect size is when actually it is difficult. It may be difficult in that particular study to actually assess the effect size. So this can be the negative, the cons of the NHST. Now, how does what is the recommended way, as the book suggests, for reporting results in a peer-reviewed journal? So it clearly states the peer-reviewed the textbook that The way to report is first report the effect size estimates with 95% confidence interval, followed by the exact probability level of a type 1 error from the NHST. So that is how the textbook recommends reporting a result. And that's all for this video. Thank you for listening. Bye.